Have you ever wondered what plants you can grow on clay soils? Well, in this video, I'm going to do my top 7 plants, which I would always recommend to people for clay soils. Hello, I'm Rosie Hardy. This is Rosie Hardy Gardening. In addition to 7 great plants to put in clay soil, I will also be covering my best advice for how I would tackle these conditions. I will cover this at the end of the video, so if you are somebody that is struggling with clay, be sure to watch to the end for that part. Now on to my recommendations. So clay soils can be quite difficult, but there are plenty of plants that you can actually grow there, ranging from beautiful grasses down to low ground cover. And that is what you really need. You need a mixture of plant material. Let's start, say, with the tall ones first, because I think tall plants are what people really want to put into that sort of area. And then from there, we'll end up with the low ground cover ones, which are extremely important for helping you with maintaining your moisture levels. So let's start off with Symphyotrichum. Symphyotrichum, now this is a little bit of a cheat because I just thought I'll just show you 2 different forms of Symphyotrichum. We have got Symphyotrichum Calliope. Look at the beautiful dark purple stems on this Symphyotrichum. It makes a really good clump, it grows really well and has upright stems and beautiful lilac purple flowers on this dark foliage and dark stems. It's such a fabulous combination. It is going to get up to around about 4, maybe 5 feet in height. That is 1.20 meter to 1.50 meter, and then as a spread I'm making a clump up to 2 feet or 60 centimeters. So a cracking plant, and it is going to start flowering very shortly. These are all buds that you can see here. It will be out in flower. It's a late season flowering plant. So that's the tallest one that I've got here, which will grow in heavy clay soils. Then the second one on the Symphyotrichum, this one is Symphyotrichum horizontalis, and this one goes up and then its arms go out sideways. This makes a brilliant hedging, as an alternative hedging. You can use this and it looks fabulous as a hedge, and it has tiny little white petal flowers with a beautiful pink eye to them, which then just covers all of this. You just get this mass of beautiful colour. This is going to get to medium height, so 2 feet high by about 18 inches, 60 centimetres by about 45 centimetres that way. So those are my one family, Symphyotrichum. Did a little bit of a cheat, giving you 1 extra one there. But they are great plants. They will work well because they are strong growers. So that's what you need when you have clay soil. You need strong growers. They will both tolerate a little bit of shade, but they're probably slightly better if it is sunnier. Then we have grasses. So you can grow various Miscanthus, and this is just one of them. This is Miscanthus Kleine Silberspinne. Kleine Silberspinne has beautiful narrow foliage at the base. It makes really decent sized clumps. You can see by this plant here that the main clump is here in the middle, and then it's putting on new bits at the side like this. So it is able to push its way out through what is a difficult situation in a clay soil. Narrow foliage, and that has got a beautiful silver line or rib all the way down, which gives it a little bit of lift on the foliage. And then at this time of the year, so we're talking late summer, up come its flower spikes, and they're really lovely, slender, and then these beautiful heads on the top. So this is a really good late season grass. During the middle of the summer, you've just got the grass effect itself. So that is good, and it looks really nice. And then when the wind blows, you get that wonderful movement on the top there of the actual grass itself. So that is Miscanthus sinensis Kleine Silberspinne. Really good form. Then we go on through the taller plants, as I was saying, and this one is an Astilbe. Now, Astilbes are brilliant for clay soil. They make fabulous clumps. They love it because they love the wet moisture in the winter and the spring. Then they come up, and then in the middle, early summer, they put on their flower heads. This was actually a white flowered form, but it still looks architectural, leaving the dead flower heads up here. Really cracking form. And you have a look at the leaf here. They've got lovely red nodes on them, so you can quite often see those red nodes as well. So always looking good. Once you get to the autumn, the foliage will start to change colour. It will go yellows and oranges, and then it will go back down and die off. Now, none of these are going to be evergreen because most herbaceous is not, but these will make good clumps. So this one is Deutschland, Astilbe Deutschland, and Astilbe Deutschland flowers at a height of 2.5 feet. Beautiful white, pure creamy white flowers on this, really good length of season. Then leave the heads there and you get this lovely seed head. So keeping the architectural theme there, good clean green foliage with these lovely red nodes on the leaf itself. The base of the plant, not much more than 18 inches, so probably about 45 centimetres. And the main heavy bit of the foliage sits again at around about 18 inches, and then the flowers are up above it. You can get all sorts of colours of Astilbe. You can get little dwarf ones, you can get really cracking tall ones, going through all the whites, the pinks, the reds, the purples, really lovely forms out there. So these are excellent for clay soils. One that is probably slightly unusual that people may not know about is this one, and this is the Salvia. This is Salvia glutinosa. Now, Salvia glutinosa is one of those plants which will grow in a lot of places, but it is really good on clay soils. It has huge big foliage at the base, and then it comes up with these lovely long flower spikes, and it has yellow flowers, soft yellow flowers with a little bit of a purple hue to them. And these seed pods are sticky. So if you touch them, you get that wonderful salvia smell on your hand. But they are brilliant. They make really good plants. They arch out. They will go in sun or part shade. At the base, they will get to somewhere around about 18 inches to 2 feet, 45 centimetres to 60 centimetres. And then height-wise, with the flower stems, now they'll either go straight up or they'll go slightly outwards. That really just depends on the amount of moisture they get in the spring and how much moisture they get in the summer as well. But they are really good doers in clay soil. So Salvia glutinosa, something to look out for. From there, we go to Astrantia. Now, Astrantias are a favourite plant of mine, and they grow in all sorts of situations, but because they will grow in clay, it's one of my favourite ones to recommend to people. And all of these are ones that I would recommend to people just to give you a difference in the year. So like the Salvia glutinosa is just coming to the end of its flowering season. It's been out right the way through the summer, heading into the autumn. The Astrantia, on the other hand, has had its first flowering, which it would have had late spring, early summer. Then it has a rest, and then it has another flowering again in the autumn. So that is really good. This is Astrantia major albiflora, and this has beautiful big white flowers with a little bit of green around the edge of those tepals. Really good base clump form of foliage, good dark green. They hold themselves up well, and they are an excellent plant. So they will make a clump about 18 inches round, and then their flowers are just about 2 foot. So 60 centimetres high, 45 centimetres wide. But just another really cracking plant that will do well in clay soils. I've talked about the taller plants coming down to the medium height plants. Let's finish off on the two that I've got here, which are really good as ground cover. I'll start with the Bistorta. This is Bistorta affinis. Bistorta affinis superba. Now, affinis superba is one of these ones which creeps along and makes lovely mats, and then you get these super two-toned flowers. So they start off pale pink, then they fade to a darker pink, and then as they go over you then get this brown. So they look really good all the time. Their foliage stays low, it is really matte forming, and wherever a piece hits the ground it will then root. So they are very good at colonizing and creating a mat through other plants, which is really good. So they're like your own green mulch, and of course if they're going over the ground and keeping it shady, they will keep more moisture in the soil during the summer, which is when the clay soils start to dry out. So these are really good for that time of year. So this is Bistorta, they used to be Persicaria, Bistorta affinis superba. And then to finish off with, I've got the Lamium. Lamium maculatum. This one is pink pearls. Beautiful silver foliage on this. This is one of those plants whereby if you just keep on giving it a haircut, the foliage looks fantastic. This has got pale pink Lamium flowers over the top of it. It will have those in the spring. You let it collapse, you give it a haircut, and then it covers the ground in these amazing leaves. Again, it's not evergreen. This will be semi-evergreen, but again, it carpets through and wanders its way around through your other plants, giving you a really good coverage of your soil. That is 7 different genuses, all going to give you really good show in clay soils. Clay soils. A lot of you who garden on clay know it can be difficult. Clay is made up of masses of tiny little particles, something around about 0.002 millimeters. So they're really tiny fine particles which are all really close together, hardly any air gaps. The water finds it difficult to penetrate, but it is one of those things where, because it's made from so many different types of rocks, not all clay soils are the same. So some can be acidic, some can be neutral, and some can be alkaline. So it is a good idea to actually test them to see which you've got, because you do not want to be adding things like extra lime onto already alkaline clays, because you'll just make them more alkaline. So it is worth testing them. Now they do have this habit that if you put a spade in and cut it when it's wet, you get this shiny surface. It's called polishing, and that is really bad, because if you do that on a horizontal layer, it creates what's known as a pan, and that can happen and then just create this area where nothing can get through. The water doesn't get through, so it puddles, your roots can't get through, it's just a solid layer. And that will happen if you try and use a rotavator, because a rotavator, the blades always rotate and they're only one size, and they keep on rotating and going along in a straight line and create a beautiful pan. So it's a no-no to using a rotavator on clay soils. I don't really think you should be using rotavators in this day and age anyway. There's other things you can do. If you are going to try and get your clay soils to be better, then you need to work on them. And they are called heavy soils because it's really difficult to dig them, because it's heavy work. They're not necessarily any heavier than anything else, but because of this closeness of them, the particles are such that they have, really strangely, they have properties of cohesion, plasticity, shrinkage, and swelling, which means that they are able to get really wet in the winter when there's lots of water around, and then when it's dry, they just become dust. And that's what a lot of people have problems with. So that's why you need to choose the plants which will grow in those sorts of conditions. But you can help in your garden by using a fork, don't use a spade, use a fork and just try and lift and create sort of cracks and break up the soil. Do it when it's slightly drier, so sometime in the autumn is best. And then use a load of organic matter, and you will just have to keep on putting on organic matter. But if you've opened it up a little bit and just made it into these sort of big clods, and then put on garden compost or horse manure or something like that, but do not put on well rotted stuff. You want the stuff which is slightly less and is still what is known as young rotting, because that will break down in the clay with the clay, and it creates a much better environment in there. So if you have been collecting all of your garden waste and you've made this beautiful, dark, wonderful wonderful garden compost, that it actually is no good for your clay other than maybe a little bit of top dressing. Maybe give it to friends. You want slightly newer stuff. So you've got the really brown, dark stuff at the bottom, you've got the halfway stuff, and you've got the new at the top. You need to be using that halfway stuff. So don't let your compost heaps get that far, because that is the stuff that you want to be putting into this area that you've dug. And don't try and do your whole garden at once. You'll get really put off. Just do small amounts at a time, and that will keep it going really well. Now, if you can afford to, you might be able to drain and do land drainage, but always check where your water table is, because if your water table is quite high, that's not going to work. But the best thing to do is organic matter, organic matter, organic matter. I know I've said it before, but it really does help. But make sure you're using the half rotted, so the halfway stage, and you'll find that is much, much better for getting your clay soils into a better way of working. A lot of people have said using sand and grit. Well, you need an awful lot. You'll need tons, tons, tons and tons of sand and grit to make any difference to a clay soil. So that is just something to be aware of. So the other thing that you could probably do, if you've got a neighbour who has worked their soil a lot longer than you, and they've got really beautiful soil, ask them for a bucket full of their soil, because that will have beautiful micronutrients and microorganisms in it, which you can then inoculate your own ground with. So put a bit into 3 or 4 different places and allow that to get in, because that inoculant will spread through your soil, and it will help and speed up the breakdown of the organic matter, and you will get something going through. So just try that as an idea, just a little inoculant from a friend who has got some really good soil. I hope that helps you. Thank you very much for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel. If you want to watch another video of mine, YouTube thinks this one is perfect for you.